Hello, BookTube. This is sort of a roundup. That's what it is. A roundup. June on the Range roundup. June has been a month to read westerns, and this was created by Michael K. Vaughan. And I remember when he mentioned it sort of in passing, and I stopped the video and I sent him a Voxer message saying, "Count me in." And the first thing I said was, well, I've got a bunch of Clifford Simak westerns that I've been wanting to read, and this is a perfect excuse, and I'll figure out whatever else to read. And it sort of grew. I think I might have been the first one that replied to him, but somebody else may have saw the video sooner, or he may have talked to people. But anyway, I like to think that I got in. I got in on the ground floor, as it were. Uh, and it sort of grew from there. And he got other groups, other booktubers to join in as co-hosts, and it sort of grew as well. There a lot of other booktubers have joined in, reading one, two, or sometimes the whole month of westerns. A lot of viewers have been reading. The subscribers from each of our channels have been reading westerns, and a lot of people have never read westerns before, or had read them for decades. For instance, me, I used to read some westerns. I was more of a western movie buff, I would say. But I had read quite a few westerns when I was younger. Zane Grey, Max Brand, a bit of Louis L'Amour, and just a smattering of other ones. But I hadn't read any for decades. So I thought, okay, well, now I've got Simak. Okay, that's sort of the first thing that came to mind. And then I thought, okay, oh, perfect thing. I can do book to films. So I chose, I think, 6 films, or well, no, yeah, I chose 6 films, but uh, 2 that I knew I was going to do. That's right. I was going to do Oxbow Incident and The Searchers. Those 2 I knew for sure. And then I had sort of I asked what else to do, and uh, uh, no, it was sorry, no, it was Oxbow Incident and True Grit. Those were the 2. And then I sort of asked, okay, do I do The Searchers? Uh, do I do Warlock? Do I do Red River? Maybe there was one other one, but The Searchers and Warlock sort of came out on top. And so I was off and running. I thought, well, I'll do some other things. I had bigger plans. I was going to do a few things about, Western genre and films, and that'll be next year, I think. Yeah. I hope this will continue for next year. I hope there'll be another June on the Range next year. And I hope Michael will ask me. That's a hint, Michael. But yeah, so I'll have a little more time to prepare to do films and radio, westerns on the radio. Yeah, I'm up for that. It's sort of extra things, and then we can do some other weird and wonderful westerns. A few traditional. I'd like to get back into it. I'd like to read a few traditional westerns as well. So I'll hopefully this will go again next year. So if you are interested in this and like to see it again, do bombard Michael and all the other co-hosts with comments, and below too, bombard me with comments. And say you would like to see this again, or what you would like to see, and then we can sort of maybe work this in. But yeah, it's all up to Michael. So um, it's in your neck of the woods, partner. But anyway, so sort of a roundup now. So these are the things that I had chosen. didn't quite, as I say, go as planned. Warlock got pushed for something else. We'll see here in a minute. And I've done videos for everything. So I was able to get through the 12 of the 14 known Clifford Simak Western stories. I would have read all 14, but I don't have access to the last two. The publications that they were in are these, which is the complete short fiction of Clifford Simak. There are 12 of these at the moment published, and only recently the 9, 10, 11, and 12 has been published in hardcover, or well, hard copy form. But yeah, so there's one in each, not chronological, but there was one in each, and I enjoyed them. Like, not his best of writing, but it was fun to see him attempt other things, something else, and there were some that I really liked, others not so. But it's it's not often that you get a writer that 100% of their output is perfect, but yeah, it was enlightening, and it allowed me to see some things in his writing, like as he developed writing the westerns. I could see some of his ethos, Simak, pastoralism sort of coming in, Simak country, as many have called it, cropping up, and place names, names of characters, things like that, and sensibilities. That's the word I was thinking of. Is sensibilities as well. Not just going for the traditional cowboys and Indians type thing. He had different heroes, so that was fun to see. I'm sure he wasn't the only writer that did that, but I'm not that familiar with sort of the pulp short story westerns at all. And it would be something that would be interesting to look into a little more, the history of that. I'm big on sort of finding the sort of roots of things, and the evolution and the history of how, digging in and finding out, okay, well, what are these Western pulps? Where did they come from? How were they, who did them, and what were they published alongside, and how many there were, and when were they big, really popular? Things like that. I really enjoy that. So anyway, let's move on for Simak. I'm sure some people are probably tired of me talking about Simak. But as to paraphrase Samuel Johnson, when you're tired of Simak, you're tired of life. Okay. The Oxbow Incident was the first movie I did. It's one of my favorites. Henry Fonda, Harry Morgan. They had to change the name. It's Colonel Potter from the second sort of half of MASH. But he was an actor as well. And this is a William Wellman film. And it's always been a favorite of mine. It's about a lynching. And I read the book in this edition of 4 classic novels of the 1940s and 50s, the Western. And the book was Walter Van Tilburg Clark. I've forgotten when it was written, actually. 1940. And it is, like, it was the second time reading the book, and it did not disappoint this time either. And it's a Western, but it's also saying so many other things. And a lot of times, many times it's interesting to look at when the book was written, because sometimes a really good writer will put things in that are current events, but not if it sort of sticks out like a sore thumb, and they're going, see, look what I did. No, but when it's subtly in there and you can draw the parallels and comparisons, beautiful. It's beautiful when that happens, and also because it reflects the period that it's supposed to be set in as well, and that's the good, to me, good writing. It's one of the aspects of good writing. Anyway, so yeah, this was another. I've been talking. I've been doing a few videos back to back here, but I've been talking about gifts that I've been given by subscribers, and this was one of them. So, and the only other one that I haven't read yet is the Warlock that's in here. I had read Shane in the past, and I also read the Searchers. We'll come to that in a moment. But Warlock, I'm going to do that in a couple weeks. I didn't actually realize. I never read the book. Long time since I've seen the film. I didn't realize the book was like 500 some pages, and I go, there's so many other things I want to do. I'm late with this, so I bumped it. But we'll see why I bumped it in a moment, and what I bumped it for. Let's see. So yeah, so we read on. Like I read 3 of the Simak stories every week, and then the book to film, and then the next film that was this is the one that delayed me a little bit, was The Searchers, and The Searchers by Alan LeMay, that's in here. 1950. Let's look at the date that it was published. 1954, and the John Ford film with John Wayne. Fabulous film. It's always been one of my favorites, and I'd not read the book before. I was a little disappointed in the book. Not so much. I loved the story, and the story was still good. It's here. What I talked about is an author going, "See, look, pointing. Look what I did," and there's a lot of that in there, with things that are sort of he draws too much attention to what he's doing, setting something up. And also to the dialogue, which I never talked about. I missed a few things in talking about it in the film video, or the video about the film. I never got a sense that these people were from Texas, from their cadence, from the way they're speaking. And I don't know off the top of my head what it sounded like, but they just sound like everybody else. But occasionally, every time somebody spoke, they mispronounced one word, and they said it in a weird way, but not to me, sort of in a Texan way. And there's no way, John Wayne is not, doing a Texan accent in here, but that there's something, with the way his cadence is and his accent, it's something that is a bit unique, and that's what I was expecting from the book, one way or another, which I didn't get. But anyway, and as I usually do with these book to films, and that's the one thing I didn't mention there, I revisited for the Oxbow Incident, Wild Bill Wellman, Hollywood Rebel by William Wellman Jr. To just revisit a few things about the filming of Oxbow, and I do that with most of them if I can. This one was The Searchers, the BFI Guide by Edward Boscombe. This is a newer edition. It says 20. Yeah, it was 2022. I had not had it, and so this was a gift as well. So, and I never had the old one. So yeah, so that was really good. But also something else that I read for this, which was really, really good. And I must thank my subscriber viewer to remind me of this, because I had forgotten all about it. I had another book. It's up there. I never got around to reading it. It's a book of essays on The Searchers, the film itself. But this is a fabulous book by Glenn Frankel, The Searchers, the making of an American legend. And it's not that big. It's Bloomsbury. It's 300 and some pages. It was published in 2013. And it's talking about the historical basis, sort of to a certain extent, like a lot of the captivity type stories and historical accounts of these, but specifically Cynthia Ann Parker, who was taken by the Comanche in Texas in 1836, and then she stayed with them for about 25 years, having children, marrying, potentially, or probably the war chief that sort of took her captive when she came of age. She was 9 years old, and then being recaptured again by the whites, the Texas Rangers, and her story, as much as possible that can be pieced together, talking about how it's turned into mythology and the legend for American experience, as well as her son Quanah Parker, who became a war chief, half Comanche, half white, and how he brokered sort of and used his position as being half white and half Comanche to be able to help not only himself but help Indians in general and the Comanche specifically, and the sort of problems that caused on both sides, from the Comanche who didn't recognize some Comanches who didn't recognize him, to the whites thinking that they're fawning too much over this person who slaughtered people, and and all this kind of stuff. So it's talking about all this, the dichotomy and the contradictions of American history, and the winners write the history and stuff like this. But yeah, so that was really good in here. It was really well done. It was so obviously general, but there's lots of other stuff that you can reference. It's got a good bibliography and references to other stuff that I want to continue reading as well, because I've always been interested in this, and it sparked for me wanting to read more about the Comanche and sort of Texas around that time. So there's a few things. I know there's a huge history of Texas that I want to read sometime, and I'd love to read. And I've not read James Michener's Texas, and so there's a lot of things that every time I read something, it always prompts me, and it always films lead me to other things. There was a chapter on the writer Alan LeMay. It was a bit weak in a sense, because it's not meant to be a biography, but it's just a brief chapter and then the second half of the book, or most of the second half, is to do with the filming of it and the reception of the film, how John Wayne is perceived then and now, what has happened to like the aftermath of Quanah Parker's house, and sort of things like that, and the legacy of the two different families, the Parker family that's descended, and then the sort of the Comanche side of the Quanah Parker's descendants, and how they interact and how they view their family history, and how that's viewed as a whole in America. It's really good. Like it's a kind of something that it's so sumptuous. The subject is so deep, you could go into it anyway. But anyway, I'm probably doing too much here. But it's a fabulous book, and I was really glad that I was reminded of this to read it. And also, there's another book, at least one other book by Glenn Frankel, on High Noon, another film, and I bet he does something similar to this that I do want to get. So that was really good, and the William Wellman film is just fabulous. I love it. So no, got mixed up here. The John Ford film. So I really like it. And again, it made me see, like, after seeing that, and I made me sort of see it in a little different light. Like, I always had these thoughts, but I see it. I think it's a misunderstood film, and I talk about that in the video as well. So yeah. So and then what did we go to on the next? I continued to read the short stories. And then was True Grit, was by Charles Portis, published in 1968. This has an introduction by Donna Tartt. Apparently she does the audiobook as well. And from other of my brethren in June on the Range, they say it's very, very well done. And the introduction here I thought was a little flat. She didn't go very far. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'd put off reading this probably for over 30 years, thinking that it was going to be lightweight and juvenile and not very good. It is a young girl. The main character, she's 14 years old, but it's not juvenile in really any way. Like, there are sort of, it's placed from a 14-year-old's eyes at times, and then sort of retrospect as an older woman, a middle-aged woman. But it's extremely well done and deceivingly simple. So I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I will be rereading this again. And I might have read too much into it in certain ways, but it was my impressions of it, and like I say, I might have gotten a little astray with my interpretations, but there are reasons why this guy the writer put certain things in there, and I think those are the reasons. Some of them I might have been stretching a little bit, but anyway, it was thoroughly great. So many great lines in it. It's stuff like, Rooster Cogner says, I got a rat writ here, writ for a rat. And then he goes, he's in the court transcript, and the lawyers ask him, what direction were you going when you're backing up? Well, I usually go backwards when I'm backing up. It's things like that, and they're purposely done that way to show lawyers, because that is a big thing, guns and lawyers. There's the lawyers, guns, and women. The women aren't really in here, but the lawyers and guns are in here. And the film is, I thoroughly love the film. It's amazing. It's Henry Hathaway film was, to me, one of the triumvirate, the trio of great classic Western directors, and I use that because they all started in silence. John Ford is really the only one that was. I should name them: John Ford, Howard Hawks, and Henry Hathaway. They all started doing silence, and that sort of, that quality goes through their films throughout. John Ford was the one that made the most westerns silent, and Howard Hawks didn't really do many, or maybe a few, and or is it Henry Hathaway that didn't do any at all in silence, but did them later. Did other genre films as well, and then there's a fourth one that I think is underrated, and the only reason why he sort of is not in with the group of them, because he didn't make any, I don't think, silent films, is Bud Beidecker. Pronunciation of surname, I'm not sure, but he wrote. He made sort of B westerns mostly, but they're really good. They're low budget westerns, but they're quality. And then there's so many other directors as well, and later in the 60s and that, there's 50s as directors started out, but we're talking ones that had earlier, at least from the 30s onward, like, in the pioneer days of cinema. Anyway, so I love this. John Wayne, Kim Darby, Glenn Campbell, not so great. And then I also watched the newer version, the Coen Brothers, with Jeff Bridges, Matt Damon, and Josh Brolin. I love Jeff Bridges. He did an excellent portrayal of Rooster Cogburn, but I still like John Wayne's portrayal of it. With all of the faults of John Wayne, I still like John Wayne better in this character. And I didn't really care for the young woman who played Maddie. She wasn't a bad actress. I probably was a little too harsh on her in the video, but she was the right age and she looked the part. But I just didn't buy the way she was doing this. It seemed like there was an internal laughing or smile or smartiness, and I don't get that from Maddie. And I like Kim Darby in the original one better, even though she was 21 playing 14. She was too old for the part, but her characterization of the part was excellent. And other things bothered me with this film. Was they I think they just changed stuff for the sake of changing it. So because the original was pretty close, other than the ending, was pretty followed the book pretty closely. So maybe they figured they had to change things, but the changes were like, why did they do that? And there were some things that were just out and out and out. I didn't like. There was two things I forgot to mention this, where LaBeef, the Texas Ranger, comes to see Maddie in this film, and he goes into her bedroom and she's in her nightgown in bed. Maddie would not have stood for this, and the owner of the boarding house would not have stood for this. It just would not have happened. Like, it was not done. It was too casual for them to be doing this. Her sitting up in bed and doing this. No, 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 no. It would not have happened. And the other scene was too, which is not as unlikely, but it still wouldn't have happened so much, because I think Maddie would have the character would have been mature enough to be able to do this, but she still probably wouldn't when she saw Rooster Cogburn in this film, and he's in his long underwear in bed. And I don't think Maddie would have done that, but that is less so. But in the book and in the other film, Rooster is fully clothed and in bed. That works. I did like that they finally, they did portray the ending as in the book in this film, so that was interesting. Very different ending in this film, but I do realize that for this film and the time, they could not have had certain scenes in here. It would not have worked. It would have flopped. It would not have worked for John Wayne as the character, because it just wouldn't have worked. There were other things that I thoroughly enjoyed. In here, John Wayne uses a Winchester that is from 1894 ish. Meanwhile, it's set in 1878, more or less. So that didn't work. And the saddles on here were sort of 1950s, like mid 20th century type saddles. They corrected that for this, or at least the Winchester that Rooster uses in here is at least the same. Maybe to some eagle-eyed person, they might notice the it might not have been an exact pre-1878, but I'm pretty sure it was a Winchester 73 that he was using. But anyway, and the saddles were correct in here. And there was another little thing that they showed in here that was really good, I thought, because it was mentioned in the book, where Rooster is going over the ridge, where the Lucky Ned Pepper has Maddie, and he says, once I see you over the ridge, then we'll let her go, and all this kind of stuff. So they see, and the thing is, like, they're looking at him, and they see him stop, raise up his gun, and shoot. So you see the black powder smoke, and then like a second or two later, you hear the sound of the gun. And they did that in the film, which I thought was really good. You see way in the distance, you see Rooster there, and he shoots, and you see the smoke, the black powder smoke, and then the sound of the gun. Yeah, little things like that impressed me at times. So again, I was probably too harsh on this film, but there were things that bothered me. There were many things that bothered me. One thing that I thought was really good, because I thought Robert Duvall as Lucky Ned Pepper here, you couldn't get anybody better than Lucky Ned Pepper. But they had somebody as good, maybe better. He's on the screen less, but I never heard of the actor before. Apparently he's Canadian born. His name is Pepper as well. It's Barry Pepper. and I was extremely impressed by his characterization of Lucky Ned Pepper. To me, it was the highlight of the film. Josh Brolin as the coward Tom Chaney. Nothing bad to say about him. He just was sort of flat to me. Matt Damon was, well, Glenn Campbell, Matt Damon, they're both not great actors. At least with Glenn Campbell, you've got some good singing occasionally. That's about it. But yeah, so I'm taking so long to do this, and for the wrap up. But anyway, instead of doing Warlock, then I decided to do some science fiction westerns because I mentioned the word robot, or Simak mentioned the word robot in one of the stories, the thing that somehow got through. And then there was a bit of a discussion in the comments about, science fiction westerns, and I remembered the Steam Man of the Prairies by Edward Ellis, then from 1868, which is considered the first, or potentially the first, American science fiction novel, and the granddaddy of steampunk. It's a steam man. It's like a locomotive, but in the shape of a man. And there were so many. The first one was done, and then later it was taken up, like an imitation of it was done by another dime a dime novel publisher, and there was 3 or 4. Well, there was 4 more written then, and then they got somebody else who wrote hundreds on this kind of thing. The Edison Age, which is a new term to reflect the sort of juvenile and adventure, inventor technology type thing, and usually iron technology as well. And I had them, and I had some, at least. I had the original one, which I'd never read. I've read some of the Frank Reed ones that were done by Enton. I think one of them before, but don't think of the one in here. I read a few of the Frank Reed Juniors, but I finally read the first one that was in here. They're not. This one was better written, but by Louis Senarens, who wrote all these and wrote potentially 2,000 or more stories. Became editor of sort of the Toozy publishing empire. But I enjoyed it. It's a thing, and I've done a video of it that came up that would have gone up yesterday, and it's just, yeah, I enjoyed them, like with all their faults, with all their setting of the times and everything like that, and shoddy writing, bad writing in many ways. But I really enjoyed them, and I want to continue with these now since they're sort of fresh in my mind. But I can't read too many at a time. So yeah, so that's my roundup of June on the Range, and I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I hope I know westerns aren't for everybody, but sometimes you want things out of your sort of comfort zone, and sometimes they're fun to read, and not always not always literature, but there were some, like the Oxbow Incident to me is really good. The Searchers was good, but it was a cut above, I think, of your run of the mill western for sure. And True Grit was really good, deceptively simple. And I'm waiting to see what Warlock is going to be like, by Oakley Hall. That'll be sometime in July. Fingers crossed. But yeah, and I'm all set for next year. I know I want to do it anyway, and I want to do spotlights on film, like silent westerns, classic western, silent and classic westerns, sound westerns, and radio westerns on the radio. As well, and hopefully I'm gonna try to see if I can dig into some history of sort of the pulp westerns, and also a little more about dime novel westerns, I would like to delve a little more into those. Not just read, maybe read a few more of these, but there not much to say that I've already said about these that I can think of. It's just going to be a guilty pleasure to read these. But maybe read some other ones, because Jesse James, the first sort of dime novel, came out in 1881 or 82, and that's where it started to craze, all that kind of stuff. And look at how that got developed through the dime novels. I like that idea, and I hope maybe others will. So I've got a year to prepare. So let's put it that way. But yeah, so and do sound out in the comments if you liked June on the Range, and go to the other. I'll leave the links to everybody else that were co-hosts. Do go there, or even just put in June on the Range, search, and watch other people's videos. Many booktubers did this and read westerns. So a lot of times for the first time. Some were successful more than others, and even a great big western, the Lonesome Dove, was read by Larry McMurtry, and Steve Donohue and Matthew at Mayberry Book Club did that as a read long, and others have read it too. Something I've not read, so that's a potential for me to read next year as well, or somewhere in between. But yeah, definitely do check out, and if it's something that you like, do bombard us with comments, or send messages to say that you want to have this come back next year. As far as I know, Michael has plans of doing this, but it doesn't help to give a little push, because this took off. I don't think Michael expected it to take off the way it did. Neither did I. I just figured, I'm doing this regardless. If you're not, if you just said this in passing, Michael, I'm still doing this because of the Simac stuff. But it sort of it ballooned and mushroomed into other things, which is just fabulous. And we need this at times, a bit of escapist literature, and that's what you need at times. So yeah, so there you go. I'll end it there. So June on the Range. A big thumbs up, and I think it was a great success. And thank you everybody for the videos, and I've enjoyed watching the videos, discussing the books with various booktubers and friends, booktuber friends, online, on comments, and privately through Voxer. So yeah. Great time. Take care, BookTube.